Morning came with the sound of footsteps and a sigh heavy enough to shake the walls. A voice rose softly asking for 5 CDs, just 5, for soap or maybe breakfast. The reply came like thunder after calm skies. 5 CDs again? Was money falling from trees now? The tone carried pride and pain at once, as if the simple request had torn a hole in his pocket. The other voice answered with laughter sharp as a knife. If he planted one of those money trees, maybe no one would bother him every morning. He frowned so hard the air seemed to stop moving. Did she think water, light, and food came free? He began counting the invisible bills in his hand, muttering that small leaks sink great ships. She clapped back, saying even ships need water to move. He lifted his voice higher, warning about waste and laziness. She laughed louder, saying, "We're not even in Nigeria. Which NEPA are you shouting about?" His face twisted, but the words would not stop. He spoke of light bills, water bills, salt, oil, even the price of air if someone tried to breathe too much of it. His mouth moved like a preacher at a money-saving crusade. She folded her arms. "You call it wisdom. I call it stinginess." He shot back with pride. "Even ants save for dry season." Her words came quick, mocking. "But ants don't switch off the fridge at night." He blinked, speechless for a moment, then puffed his chest again. "A man who wastes salt will cry when his soup tastes like tears." She smiled thinly. "A man who counts grains of rice will eat alone." From outside, laughter spilled in. The neighbors were already peeking, women at the well whispering that it had started again. Children giggled. Even a goat bleated like it understood the joke. She sighed, saying quietly, "Even the goats know you're stingy now." His face burned with pride and anger. He stormed out, counting under his breath. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like each number was a coin that must not escape. Inside, silence settled. But soon his lips curved into a sly grin. The same man who shouted over 5 CDs now typed sweet words on his phone. "Good morning, beautiful. Did you sleep well?" The screen glowed and hearts filled the air. His frown melted into warmth. Promises flowed. Lunch, small gifts, love that cost no effort. The stingy man was gone. In his place stood another, smooth, careful, and full of sugar-coated lies. And as his fingers danced across the screen, the story of a double life began. One hand holding coins too tight to share, the other giving away love as if it were free. His fingers moved quickly over the phone, and his face softened like morning sun touching wet clay. The message began with gentle words. "Don't worry, baby. I'll send you something small." The voice inside him changed completely. Gone was the man who guarded every coin like a treasure chest. Now he sounded warm, kind, and full of care. "My sunshine," he wrote, adding heart emojis like gifts that cost nothing. The irony was sharp enough to cut laughter out of silence. The same man who argued over 5 CDs now promised to send money to another woman without blinking. He smiled proudly at his screen, feeling like a hero of generosity. His heart danced to a rhythm only deceit could play. "You deserve it, my love. I've just been busy. You know I think of you all the time." Behind him, another voice spoke, tired, frustrated, asking about soap, breakfast, or maybe the light bill again. But he barely heard it. His grin only grew wider. The sound of complaint became background music to his secret joy. His lips curved, and the phone screen reflected a glow that looked too innocent for the mischief it held. The man who once preached about saving salt now smiled like a saint sending alms. The story was writing its own joke, a stingy man about to learn an expensive lesson. Long before this double life, he was known as a giver. The memory slipped in like a song from an old drum. He once walked proudly into a village youth meeting, dressed too fine for the occasion. That day, he bought drinks for everyone, laughing loud enough for the ancestors to hear. "You deserve a man who shares his blessings," he had said, handing out bottles like blessings. The crowd cheered and she believed him. Under the mango tree, promises grew faster than fruit. "When we marry, you'll never lack anything," he whispered. The whole community had danced that night. Drums beat until dawn, blessings poured like rain, and her parents smiled with pride. They saw a churchman, gentle and godly, ready to care for their daughter. No one saw the shadow behind his generous smile, the kind that gives to be seen and hides when it's time to share. Now, as his finger hovered over send, his grin held both confidence and doom. The gods of irony were already awake, watching. Because in the land of wisdom, a stingy man who gives for deceit will always pay more than he plans to send. The drums that once sang of joy now beat with silence. The wedding laughter had faded, leaving only the sound of coins clinking like stubborn hearts. Not long after the celebration, his tone grew sharp and dry. Every word about money turned into a battle. "Why did you buy that much rice?" he would say. "Why do you cook like we're feeding the whole village?" Even the church offering became a debate. "God doesn't need all our money at once," he argued. She reminded him softly, "You said I'd never lack anything." His reply came quick like a whip. "That was before I saw how wasteful you are." The same mouth that once promised paradise now counted crumbs. The laughter from their wedding echoed like mockery in the corners of their lives. At the dinner table, food turned into figures. She brought out a small notebook, pages filled with numbers instead of recipes. Every coin had to answer for itself. "How much salt did you use today?" he asked. "Only a pinch," she said. "That's 2 pinches too many," he barked, his face tight with pride. What was once a meal became a meeting. The aroma of food mixed with the weight of calculation. The audience laughed, but beneath the laughter lay her quiet frustration. A woman learning that love can taste like arithmetic. Yet she did not fight. She held her peace with the strength of still water. Each day she prayed, "May God open his heart or my eyes." Her silence was not weakness. It was wisdom wrapped in patience. She moved gently around him, keeping the home warm though his words were cold. Her quiet dignity made her stronger than his temper. The neighbors whispered about her calm. The women at the well said, "That one knows something the rest of us don't." Then came Naki, young, bright-eyed, and smooth like palm wine. She worked close enough to notice his pride, and she played it like a talking drum. "You're different, sir," she said one afternoon, her voice sweet and sure. "You carry yourself like a man of wisdom." The words slid into his ears like honey, and he smiled in a way he hadn't in months. The dryness in his spirit found a drop of rain. Her laughter fed his ego, and he began to stand taller, speak slower, act richer. The man who once counted grains of salt now counted the attention of another woman. The story was shifting again, quietly, dangerously, the kind of turn that makes even the ancestors lean closer to listen. He began to walk with a new rhythm, the kind that made people look twice. His shirts looked crisper, his shoes shone like morning dew, and his cologne announced him before his voice did. Each Sunday he stood taller in church, his smile suddenly brighter. He checked his reflection twice before leaving home, humming softly as he did. Amanda noticed. She said nothing, only watched, her silence sharper than any question. Soon whispers began to dance around the church corridor. "Deacon Osafo is smiling too much these days," someone murmured. "And smelling like a new husband," another replied. Laughter followed him wherever he went, but it wasn't the holy kind. Naki's game was sweet and dangerous. She praised him for his discipline with money, saying, "You are a true provider. Men like you are rare." Her words fell like rain on dry soil. His pride soaked it in. He laughed, chest rising proudly. "Ah, Naki, you understand me. Not like some people at home." The irony was thick. The same stinginess that tormented Amanda now became his badge of honor. He began to believe her words, forgetting that flattery is the sugar that coats a trap. The hunter didn't know he was the one being hunted. Soon, his nights grew longer. The laughter that used to fill his home now echoed through his phone. Amanda would hear muffled voices, soft chuckles, and the faint sound of promises whispered into the dark. When she asked, he smiled thinly. "I was praying with a brother," he said. But his eyes told another story, a story that glowed each time Naki's name lit his screen. He started keeping the phone close, sliding it under his pillow like a secret charm. Amanda noticed every move but said nothing. Her silence became her weapon, her shield, her mirror. One night he lost his calm. "Why are you always quiet?" he barked. The words came sharp, like stones breaking still water. Amanda turned slowly, her voice soft but unshaken. because talking won't change truth. The air between them grew heavy. His breath caught. Her calmness cut deeper than any accusation could. The audience could feel it. Her silence was no longer peace. It was the sound before a storm, the moment when even the wind holds its breath, waiting for justice to find its way home. He began to walk with a new rhythm, the kind that made people pause. His steps grew lighter, his clothes brighter, his face shining like a man who had found sudden favor. Every Sunday he stood taller in church, his laughter louder than hymns. The whispers started slow, like wind behind the drums. Deacon Osafo is finally enjoying life. Maybe the Lord has opened his eyes. He smiled when they said it. He called it God's favor. But the eyes of the people saw more than he said. The glances exchanged between him and the young woman with the red scarf told another story. Each smile she gave was a spark. Each word she spoke a gentle pull. The man who once scolded others for wasting time now lingered after service, laughing until the candles died out. The man who once warned about temptation now stood too close to its fire. But in his heart he called it blessing. The audience knew better. They saw the truth dancing in plain sight. A man not touched by heaven, but by the soft hands of Naki. "Sir, I forgot my purse today." The voice was soft, carrying a sweetness that could melt pride. The man laughed, shaking his head. Don't worry. Take small something for lunch." He reached into his pocket and pulled out C200, a note that Amanda had never touched in 1 week. His hand moved easily, the money flowing like river water. The same hands that once clutched coins now opened like the morning sun. The audience laughed. The stingy man had become a generous fool. "You are too kind," she said, her eyes glistening like dew. He smiled wider, chest rising with false pride. "Kindness is a gift," he said. But the words tasted strange in his mouth, for kindness had never lived in his house. The people watching could see the irony shining like daylight. The man who once called giving waste now spent freely for sin. His generosity was not born of goodness, but of blindness. Amanda stood quietly, a folded list in her hand. Her voice came soft, careful not to stir fire. "Osafo, can you give me 100 CDs for food this week?" The man frowned, his brows heavy like thunderclouds. "Do you think I'm an ATM?" The air cracked with silence. She looked down, her fingers tightening on the paper. He looked away, as if generosity had no place in his home. The audience felt the sting deep in their chests. The same man who poured 200 CDs into another woman's palm now guarded his coins like treasure. His lips preached wisdom, but his heart danced with hypocrisy. Amanda said nothing more. She tore her list quietly and tucked the pieces away. Her silence spoke louder than anger. The watchers of the tale knew what it meant. When a woman stops asking, she has started seeing. Morning came like any other. The table was set, the bread warm. The man entered, his eyes sharp and searching. He looked at the bread not with hunger but suspicion. "Who ate the extra one yesterday?" His voice carried weight, like a judge in a small court. Amanda sighed softly, her hands still. The audience laughed, not with joy, but pity. The same man who gave away cetus like rain now counted bread like gold. Each slice became a symbol, not of hunger, but of control. He lifted the loaf again, counting slowly, lips moving as if the bread might lie. The woman watched him, her eyes steady and quiet. The people could almost hear the ancestors whispering through the wind. "A man who counts crumbs while his soul leaks gold will one day find both gone." And so the day ended as it began, with laughter that hid sorrow and silence that held truth. Each night before the moon could even rest on the roof, he walked to the corner where the fridge stood humming softly. With pride heavy in his chest, he pulled the plug from the wall. "Electricity is expensive," he said, nodding like a man who had just solved a great mystery of life. A soft voice rose behind him. "But what about the milk?" He waved a hand like a king dismissing foolish talk. "If it's strong milk, it will survive till morning." The audience laughed, their hands on their knees. His words carried the weight of nonsense only a true village miser could defend. He smiled to himself, proud of his wisdom, unaware that the world outside called him stingy, not smart. The fridge stood silent, holding spoiled milk and frozen dreams, while he drifted to sleep, counting coins instead of blessings. Far away, another voice purred through his phone. "Babe, I need to fix my hair. You know your girl must look fine for you." The grin that followed could light a whole room. "I'll send you something small, my angel." Her laughter filled his ear like honey. But behind her sweetness hid plans the man could never see. Plans written with another name, another face. She already knew what her weekend would bring, and it wasn't him. Yet he sat smiling in the dark, chest warm with foolish joy, believing he was loved. The audience chuckled, shaking their heads. The hunter of savings had become the prey of flattery. The trap was closing, and only the blind thought they were safe. Late in the night, when the house was quiet and the crickets spoke in rhythm, his fingers moved under the blanket. The blue light of his phone flickered like forbidden fire. "Just take C500 for airtime," he whispered. The soft sound of money leaving his account sang louder than his conscience. A faint ting broke the silence. The woman beside him turned gently, pretending to sleep. Her eyes stayed closed, but her mind was awake. She heard every transfer, every lie wrapped in laughter. He smiled, convinced of his cleverness. He sent money like blessings to sin while denying bread to love. The same man who unplugged fridges to save power now powered deceit with his own hands. The watchers of the tale shook their heads. Hypocrisy had found a home. Days turned, and the woman who shared his roof grew quieter. She spoke less, watched more. When messages came, she noticed how his face changed, how his shoulders lifted as if touched by unseen hands. She saw the joy that had no place in their home. She didn't cry. She didn't shout. She only whispered to herself, "A seed always shows what fruit it will bear." Her silence stretched through the air like a calm before rain. It was not weakness, but warning, the kind that elders recognize and the foolish ignore. The audience felt the shift, the slow tightening of fate. For in tales like these, silence is not peace. It is the storm learning where to strike. One lazy afternoon, her message arrived like honey poured into poison. "Baby, I want to start a small business. I just need C25,000. His heart jumped before his mind could reason. For a moment, he stared at the screen, chewing on his pride. Then came the voice inside him, the voice that always wanted to look powerful. "You believe in me, so I'll support your dream." His fingers danced on the keypad as he typed it proudly. On the other side, heart emojis rained like confetti. The watchers of the tale could already see where it was heading. They laughed softly, knowing that foolishness often wears the mask of generosity. When night came, he moved like a thief in his own house. The air was still. He crept to his small office, eyes bright with secret excitement. His phone glowed as he opened his banking app. C25,000, a number that made him feel like a man of importance. He entered the digits carefully, checking once, then twice. "She'll love me forever," he whispered with pride swelling in his chest. But destiny was watching. Fate smiled, a smile older than time. The transfer went through, yes, but not to the name he thought. Somewhere in the house, the rightful owner of that money turned in her sleep, unaware that the universe had just handed her poetic justice. And as the elders say, even the stingiest man cannot cheat destiny. He slept soundly that night, wrapped in dreams of praise and sweet words that would never come. He saw himself as a hero in love, a man who gave big for the woman who admired him. But dawn has a way of exposing secrets hidden by darkness. The woman beside him stirred as her phone blinked with light. She reached for it, eyes half open. Could 25,000. She sat still, staring at the screen as if heaven had spoken through numbers. "God," she whispered softly, "is this a test or a miracle?" Her lips curved in disbelief, her heart steady but alert. The universe had moved in silence, but its message was clear. Every wrong coin finds its rightful pocket in time. Morning came, dressed in peace. The sun slipped into the house like it always did. He hummed softly, pretending to focus on his laptop, shoulders light with false pride. She moved quietly, setting the table, her eyes calm but sharp. The air between them was calm, too calm. The kind of calm that storytellers know well. The kind that walks hand in hand with irony. For beneath that morning peace, destiny was still smiling, waiting to speak. He looked left, then right, like a man guarding a secret from his own shadow. His heart beat quick, but his fingers were faster. The phone glowed in his palm. He opened the bank app, grinning like someone about to impress the world. Naki Boteng C25,000, he typed boldly, his pride swelling with each number. But pride has a way of blinding the eyes and twisting the fingers. In his rush to prove love, his hands betrayed him. The name that appeared was not Naki's. It was Amanda's. Without thinking twice, his thumb hit send. A soft chime followed, the sound of fate pressing yes. The phone buzzed again. Transaction successful. His chest rose with victory. A smile stretched across his face like the morning sun after rain. She will love me forever, he whispered to himself, imagining a sweet voice saying, "Oh, baby." He leaned back, satisfied. In his mind, he was a hero of romance, a man who gave big. But unseen by him, the ancestors shook their heads and laughed quietly. He had just paid for his own downfall, and the gods had signed the receipt. Not far away, the sound of blessing traveled through air. The woman of the house stood by her small duties, hands busy, heart calm. Her phone buzzed, a sound she almost ignored. But when she looked, her eyes widened, C25,000 received. For a moment, silence filled her. Then a slow smile touched her lips. "God, you truly work in mysterious ways," she whispered softly. The heavens must have smiled back, because in that quiet moment, justice had entered her kitchen without knocking. Morning rolled into calmness. She served breakfast like any other day, steady and kind. He sat at the table, pretending to read his newspaper, chest puffed up with fake importance. She placed his plate gently and said with warmth, "Thank you, my husband." He looked up briefly, puzzled. "For what?" "The eggs." She smiled, her voice smooth like oil on water. "For everything." He nodded, half listening, and went back to his paper. But the audience could already feel the laughter hiding behind her calm. The stingy man who counted bread had just fed his wife's peace with his own foolishness, and he still had no idea. The phone rang that afternoon, loud and sharp, cutting through his joy like a knife. He smiled, already imagining sweet laughter on the other side. "Baby, where is the money?" The voice that came was fire. His smile froze. "What do you mean?" "I sent it already," he said quickly, his tone half proud, half unsure. "To who? I haven't seen anything." The words crashed like thunder over his ears. His hand trembled. The line went silent. Sweat gathered on his forehead as the air grew heavy. He opened his banking app, his heart thumping like drums of war. One look at the screen and his whole world stopped. Receiver name, Amanda Mensah. His eyes grew wide, his breath caught in his throat. "No, no, no. It can't be," he whispered. His chest felt tight, and the phone nearly slipped from his hand. "Jesus, take me now," he muttered, staring at the glowing name that mocked him like a cruel joke. Just then, calm footsteps moved closer. A soft humming filled the air, a gospel tune, warm and steady. "My dear husband, is something wrong?" The words came with sweetness that only truth could carry. He froze, swallowing hard. Did you get any message today?" His voice cracked. The humming stopped. "Yes," she said gently, her face calm, her tone sure. "A blessing came to me this morning." He blinked fast, his throat dry. He tried to find words that could fix what was already broken. "Listen," he said. "That money was for something important." Her hands folded slowly across her chest. "Oh?" she asked softly. "So now your wife is not important?" He forced a weak smile, hoping charm could save him. "It was a mistake," he said quickly. "Yes," she replied, still calm, still unshaken. "A very expensive mistake?" And with that, silence filled the space, the kind of silence that carried lessons. The kind that made even the proud learn that some mistakes don't need shouting to teach. They teach with quiet, steady eyes and a knowing smile. The morning came too soon. Sweat rolled down his face as he sat up fast, breathing like a man chased by his own shadow. His hand reached for the phone, shaking. The screen glowed, C25,000 sent to Amanda Mensa. His mouth fell open. "Oh no, what have I done?" The words escaped like a prayer to no one. His chest tightened. Fear spread through him like fever. His fingers flew across the phone. The number dialed fast. His voice broke through. "Please reverse the transfer. It was a mistake." The line stayed calm, a voice too soft for his storm. "Sorry, sir. The transaction is final." His heart sank. He stood frozen, the phone heavy in his palm. The money was gone. Gone into the hands of the very woman he tried to deceive. By afternoon, whispers began to move through the air. The church choir, always sharp with tongues, had new music to sing. "That man is wicked." "He played me," one voice cried. The others nodded, eyes wide, hearts full of judgment and laughter. The gossip flowed like a river after rain, reaching every ear that loved stories. By evening, his name danced on every lip. The mighty deacon who fell by his own hand. Sunday arrived with silence thick as smoke. The church gathered, heads bowed in prayer. The pastor's voice rang out clear and slow. "Let us pray for those who love money more than wisdom." A soft murmur followed. He lowered his head, the world suddenly small. Beside him, she sat tall, her face calm, her spirit glowing like oil in a lamp. And in that quiet space, justice spoke without words. Not loud, not cruel, just balanced the way the ancestors intended. The proud had fallen, and the wise had risen. The story had ended as all African tales should, not with shouting, but with truth that humbles the heart. Across town, she stared at her phone like it had betrayed her. The screen showed nothing but silence. No alert, no message, no money. Her voice rose sharp through the air. "Baby, where is my money?" A nervous laugh came through the line. "I sent it. Maybe there's a delay." Her eyes narrowed. "Don't play with me. I said I need it today." The call ended with a sigh that could have burned a man's pride. By midday, the wind carried stories faster than any bird. Whispers moved from mouth to mouth, laughter following behind. "Did you hear? The proud man who counts bread slices sent his lover's money to his wife." Even the Okada riders found joy in the tale. "Ah, love has its own GPS," one shouted and the crowd roared. In the marketplace, his name walked before him, dressed in shame. When the sun began to fall, the ground trembled with her steps. She marched to his compound, wrapper tied tight, fire in her eyes. Her voice tore through the gate. "Come out! Bring me my C25,000. Doors creaked open. Faces peeked out like curious spirits. The air buzzed. This was no small quarrel. Then she appeared. Calm, slow, with the quiet strength of a river before a flood. Her voice was soft, but it carried weight. "C25,000? She repeated as if tasting the number. The proud man froze, sweat sliding down his back. Between one woman's fury and another's calm, he stood like a goat waiting for judgment. And the people watched, because in that moment, everyone knew the story was just beginning. She stood with fire in her eyes, pointing like a queen ready for war. "Your husband took my money. Tell him to return it." The calm one folded her arms slowly, lips curling with quiet power. "My husband? Or our husband?" The air itself stopped breathing. Even the birds above forgot their songs. Silence stretched like a rope between them. Then the calm one turned, eyes fixed on the trembling man. "So this is where our grocery money was going?" He tried to speak, but the words hid behind his teeth. Sweat rolled down his face like confession. She did not shout. Instead, a faint smile rose, soft, dangerous, unbothered. "Next time," she said, voice steady as a drumbeat, "send to the right woman." The words were gentle, but they sliced through his chest sharper than any blade. The other woman gasped, fury flashing through her face. "You're both mad!" She spat, hands flying, slippers striking the earth like thunder as she stormed away. The crowd that had gathered laughed in whispers, the kind that follow shame. Shame. for his own downfall, and the gods had signed the receipt. He stood still, shoulders sinking, eyes lost on the ground. His pride had packed its bags. His lies had no place to hide. His secret love had turned into public dust. Even the ticking clock mocked him, each sound saying what no one else dared. You brought this upon yourself. The alert blinked again, bright and sure. 25,000 sat where it never should have been, yet it felt perfectly right. A smile touched her lips, soft and knowing. God doesn't make errors, only corrections. The words carried warmth, not pride. Her fingers brushed the screen like one touching a sign from heaven. She thought of all the times patience had mocked her, of the silent days when her prayers seemed to vanish in smoke. But now peace stood beside her. What was taken in pain had returned in purpose. Her heart whispered what her lips dared not say. Some mistakes are divine rearrangements. A week passed, and the sound of a new beginning rose from her hands. A small kiosk stood near the market, patched with hope and borrowed wood. A stove hissed to life, oil bubbling like laughter. Puff puff danced golden in the pan, meat pies browned with pride. Children ran by, following the smell of joy. A woman stopped to buy one, then another, smiling wide. Her laughter rang out, light and free, echoing between the rhythm of the market. People began to speak again. Have you seen her kiosk? It shines like morning. That one, she turned loss into gold. And soon, the air carried her name like a blessing whispered between breaths. When he passed by, his eyes caught the small board painted in blue, Amanda's Delights. He stood still for a long time, the world suddenly quiet. Somewhere deep within, regret stirred like dust in sunlight. She walked past him once, her steps firm, her calm voice following like a gentle wind. God just corrected your mistake. Don't test his patience again. The words were soft, yet they struck with the weight of thunder. The door closed behind her, final, steady, unhurried. Silence swallowed him whole. Days rolled by, and the village found its laughter again. At the well, under the trees, in the market corners, they spoke in low tones that carried far. The stingy man paid for his own punishment, someone said, shaking a head full of knowing. Justice walks slowly, another answered, eyes bright with truth. But she never forgets her way home. And so the tale settled into memory, of how pride met patience, how loss birthed purpose, and how even in error, heaven keeps its perfect count. The sound of laughter filled the air long before the smell of fried puff-puff reached the corners of the street. Hands clapped, coins jingled, and voices rose like a morning song. Customers gathered faster than she could count. Even the proud churchwomen who once walked past now stood in line with smiles and baskets. Children ran ahead, shouting her new name like a song. Madam Miracle! Madam Miracle! She tried to hide her blush, but joy glowed in her eyes. It was just one mistake that fed me, she said softly, wiping her hands on her apron, her smile brighter than the fire beneath her pan. Soon, word spread beyond the market. Whispers turned to talk, and talk turned to pride. Even those who once mocked now sent their daughters to buy from her. The name that began with laughter now carried respect. Across the street, mornings looked different. He woke before the sun, broom in hand, sweeping like one who owed the earth an apology. He greeted everyone who passed, voice low and polite. The same man who once barked orders now smiled with humility. "Can I have breakfast, please?" he asked one morning, eyes lowered. From the next compound, laughter drifted like music. Ah, the mighty man has fallen softly. Days grew gentle yet heavy with quiet lessons. One evening, he held a small envelope and cleared his throat. "Let me pay the water bill." She looked up, stunned, her spoon pausing midair. Outside, women hid giggles behind their scarves. "The stingy one is now generous," someone whispered. He forced a small smile, one that carried more truth than pride. Humility had found a home in him, and it refused to leave. The story did not stop there. At the barber's shop, where men liked to boast and mock, the tale became a proverb. One man laughed loud enough to shake his chair. God didn't strike him with lightning, he just pressed send for him. The others burst into laughter, slapping their knees. nodding in agreement. Even he, sitting quietly in the corner, could not help but chuckle, a dry, knowing sound that tasted like wisdom. As the days turned, the laughter softened into reflection. The storyteller's voice rose, calm and steady, like the rhythm of an old drum fading after a long festival. "Sometimes," the voice said, "God does not use thunder to punish foolish men. He simply lets them press send to the wrong woman," and the crowd nodded. For they knew, no storm is louder than a quiet lesson from heaven. The story did not end with laughter or shame. It ended with a lesson that walked barefoot through every heart in the village. The elders gathered beneath the great tree, their voices carrying the weight of old wisdom. "Stingy men are not poor," one said, shaking his head slowly. "They are only generous in the wrong direction." The younger ones nodded, some laughing, others silent, as if the words had touched something deep inside them. In every corner, the tale found a new tongue. At the market, a woman said, "When deceit meets destiny, the gods do not shout, they whisper correction." Another replied, "And sometimes that whisper sounds like a phone alert." Laughter rippled like water. But even the laughter carried truth. They all remembered how pride had fallen, how a small mistake had turned into a blessing no man could plan. "One wrong transfer," an old man murmured, tapping his walking stick, "became the hand of heaven." The others hummed in agreement, their eyes bright with knowing, and so the story lived, not in books or scrolls, but in mouths that never forgot. Every time a man tried to hide his coins from his wife, someone would cough and say, "Careful now. Before your finger presses send again." The whole village learned that wealth means nothing when the heart is small, and that sometimes divine lessons come not with thunder, but with a quiet beep and a wife who knows how to turn mistakes into miracles.